Do you ever have one of those projects where everything that can go wrong seems to go wrong? That's this project for me. I would like to thank If You Willem for sending me this DIY crossbow kit. This build video is not going to really get to the heart of how to build this properly. I'm going to kind of show you some things that I did differently. And I would suggest checking out his channel if you really want to make one of these. He does a way better job than I am doing in this video. So this is the kit that he sent me. You can go onto his website, and I'll put links down below on where to download the PDF template. So you just need a few sheets of different thickness of plywood, and the other parts you'll need to 3D print. So I started out doing this the way he did it, cutting it out on my bandsaw, and everything was going fine, and I thought to myself, he has a great video on how to make this, so that's when I decided to do it differently. Also, I broke a bandsaw blade. So I decided to run it on my X-Carve, and this brought up a whole nother set of problems. You can see here that I am actually losing steps, and even broke a bit because I was losing steps. So right here you can see that this was supposed to cut a lot wider, and I was trying to do kind of a paraframe design where I had some cutouts in it, and I thought it would look really cool. And due to the fact that I was losing steps, not only you can see how bad the chip out was on this, but they did not line up properly, which meant I had a ton of sanding to do and shaping to get those inside pieces looking correctly. Now here I'm just gluing up the sections and using about every spring clamp that I own. I maybe have a couple more after this, but so just letting the glue dry here, and then getting on to the extremely tedious part of sanding out all of these spots where the CNC did not cut it correctly. So I'm using a Dremel with a sanding bit to do some rough shaping, and after that, just kind of beveling the edges a little bit. I decided that I kind of need to get a little bit more aggressive on the inside parts, so I switched over to some files and filed them down. And at this point, I kind of realized it was a bit of a lost cause. It was not really looking the way I wanted it to do. So, I got it as good as I could, cleaned up some of the edges, and then I decided to fill those empty spots with some resin mixed with gold powder to kind of give it a little contrasting look. And this is the Alumilite gold powder I use. And here comes the next problem, where my resin had hardened up. And so I pulled out an old bottle of Alumilite resin that I had, and you can see here it's kind of runny too. Could be that my shop was cold, but so just mixing everything up and pouring it, and realized that after about 4 or 5 hours, this resin was just not kicking and setting up. So I actually ended up scraping all of it out and mixing up a new batch from a fresh bottle of resin, and it seemed to work okay. Now the problem was it bled through on the other side, which the tape didn't hold very well, and also the gold did not come through all the way where I had the tape on it. I've done this before and it worked pretty well, and it just didn't work this time. So I'm painting everything now, just using this dark, blackest black paint you can get on the market, because it kind of covers up a lot of stuff, and it's very matte, so it hides really ugly things. So with that gold resin not showing through, I decided to do some rub and buff detail on it. So I just made a little paint mask here and putting it on the other side, and just using gold rub and buff and buffing that right in. I like this stuff a lot better than spray paint or gold paint. It covers really well, and it's easy to use. So I decided to add a few stripes and other details to kind of take away of how bad my CNC machine made this. So, just adding some details to it. And here's the kind of final shape. It's not perfect, but it works, and that black really hides everything. So at this point, I decided to experiment with a couple more things, and I have this leather cord, and decided to do a handle wrap on this to also hide some of the ugliness that happened with everything else along the way. And just adding some paste wax to seal it up. And I'm trying out something new, adding beeswax to this handle and heating it up and buffing it out a little bit to fill in all of the gaps, to give it a little bit more of a solid feel on that grip. And it kind of ages it and weathers it a little bit. So I think that part is my favorite thing that I got out of this experience. I really like the way that looked, and it feels really nice. I'll probably have to try to add that to something else in the future. Kind of feels like one of those old Estwing hammers. And now just attaching the trigger mechanism to this. And it's a two-piece kit, or two pieces to the thing, and you just thread it both in. And attaching the nuts to lock everything into place. And one thing that's not pictured here is there's two more screws that use rubber bands to keep those springs from springing back and forth. And now just attaching the front piece. I'm not really sure, the bow part of it, I guess. And now attaching the sights to it. These are the things you 3D printed, and I also added gold rub and buff on those. And these are kind of more aesthetics than everything else, but that top one kind of helps keep it in place. So I didn't have what he suggested for the bungee part of it, so I just used a bungee cord that I had, and it actually worked pretty well. You can see here in this test shot that it has some good force. I ended up shortening that bungee cord after I shot this video, and it gave it a lot more force. So here is the final slow motion shot. I didn't add any feathers to this to keep it flying straight or anything, but all in all, you know, I'm kind of happy. It wasn't the best project ever, and I don't know, hopefully you learned something, and you know, aren't discouraged about screwing up. And you know, I was hesitant to post this, but I told If You Willem that I would do this video, and I want you to go to his channel and check out his video. He does a very good job explaining everything and gets into a lot more detail of how this thing works. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure you check out his video, and we'll see you later. All right, bye.